The future is bright, Illini fans, but is the future now? Locked On Illini, let's go.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another live edition of Locked On Illini. My name is Sunny Verma. You can find me at IlliniCast. You can find me at the Sunny V. A lot of you have been noticing I've been going live for these episodes in the evenings. If you like that, mention in the comment section. I can kind of try to do this as often as I can in the evening time, obviously when schedule permits. A lot of you watch in the normal morning time slot whenever the episodes are released. Just to let you guys know, if you guys want to catch the show live, participate in the comment section. It's absolutely going to be an option. I'm going to leave it up to you guys. I'll probably set up a poll to see if you guys kind of enjoy me doing these live episodes. I have fun doing it because I get to interact a little bit with you guys. But again, a simple reminder, another way to interact with me is to find me on all the social medias, Facebook, Instagram. Just look for Locked On Illini and, send me a message there because that's me responding. I'm completely in charge of those accounts. And so if you get a response back, just know it's straight from me. Today's episode is going to be one that I'm going to have fun talking about because it just kind of talks about this upcoming basketball season. And there's a lot of new guys coming in here. And I really, truly feel like the success of this team might rely on not just the new faces on this Illini basketball team, of which there's many, but the youngest ones, the freshmen. So are they going to be able to handle something right away, right off the bat? Well, we're going to talk about it just now. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Like I said, this episode is being done live, so I'm open to your comments in the last segment. I'm going to be addressing most of them when I can. So let's talk about this basketball team. We don't know the starting lineup, right? Nobody knows the starting lineup. I don't even know if the coaches know what that starting lineup is going to look like right now. But let's just talk about some of the main pieces that we think are going to be a big part of this basketball team. And this may take a while because this team might honestly go to 9 or 10 deep. We'll start with Kylan Boswell. Obviously, his third year as a college basketball player. I would say an up and down career with Arizona, but the potential's still there. He looks great. A summer workout session with Fletch has him losing a lot of the baby fat that it looked like he had at Arizona. And I do really think, at least from the people I've spoken to, that he's realized that, stuff happened at Arizona. He had a nice career there, but sometimes you're just young. And, a lot of us went to college and had a little too much fun in college. And maybe Kylan was just one of those individuals, but Kylan wants to make it to the next level. He wants to play professionally. And if he wants to do that, he knows he's got to focus on his game. And that's what's going to be noticed by NBA scouts moving forward. And we're looking at Kylan to be a calming influence on this team, a guy who's going to be a veteran, a guy that these younger guys are going to be looking up to. Kylan's going to have the ball in his hands a lot between him and Kasparis. So, when we go into these crazy raucous environments, it's going to be Kylan who has to be the coach on the floor. Not that there can't be other ones, but Kylan's going to be the one that's the veteran out there. Him and potentially, let's go to the next guy, Ben Humrickhouse. Ben, I don't want to set the expectations because I know it's very lazy. Everyone wants Ben to be Marcus Dumas 2.0, a taller version of him. But Marcus Dumas surprised each and every one of us. And that's a lot of us, even my co-host on IlliniCast, who watched a lot of Marcus Dumas at Southern Illinois. He did not know that Marcus would reach the levels that he did for the Illini last year, being arguably our most important player. But what do we need from Ben? We need Ben to be a solid double-digit scorer. Brad Underwood continually talks about how he's one of the best shooters he's ever had. If at 6'9", he can continue to just space the floor a little bit and let guys like Kasparis and Will Riley do their thing. I think, again, and also keep in mind, he's going to be senior. One of the only seniors on this team. Is he the only senior? Right off the top of my head, I think he's the only senior on this team. So again, veteran leadership is going to be needed by him. I'm going longer than I planned to. So let's just say Trey White, another guy who the fans are not talking about very much, but my everydayers in here. And please let me know in the chat if you are one of the everydayers. I always appreciate those shout outs. They know that I have an individual who sees all these practices. He's not affiliated with the team, but I guess he's a high enough donor where somehow he stumbled across Locked On Illini. He's a fan of the show. Hello to you if you're watching this one. And so he gives me tidbits every now and then on how the team is looking. And it coincides with what the whispers the staff has been saying all summer long, is that they're very high on Trey White. And that even though the fans may not necessarily have been talking him up as much as other people should have been, I think the hype is starting to catch up now. I see other media content out there now starting to refer to Trey White a little bit more, even mentioning him as a possible starter. That's not by accident. That I'm not saying he's going to be a starter, but I am saying that he's going to have a pretty big role on this team. And that was pretty evident almost the minute he stepped foot on campus. Let's go with Ty Rodgers. Ty Rodgers, obviously, who's probably the captain of this team. He kind of exemplifies everything Brad Underwood talks about when it comes to everyday guys. Hustle. He does so many things very good. Obviously, there's one glaring flaw over his team for the last couple of years, and social media might try to convince us that it's not so much a flaw right now. I'm strictly of the mindset that I want to see it before I start thinking that Ty Rodgers is going to be a shooter of any sort. But Ty Rodgers, whether he's starting or not, I know at least my viewers, I hear this in the comment section all the time, are pretty 50-50 on whether Ty's going to be starting. We know Ty Rodgers is going to probably be the captain of this team. Brad loves him, understandably. Ty exemplifies everything you want in the Illini to be, the way he's always diving for loose balls. He plays defense at a fantastic level. Ty Rodgers is Illinois basketball in the modern Brad Underwood era, minus the scoring. And then we talk about guys like Kerry Booth. We still don't know what's going to happen with Tomislav Ivicic, right? It's still not cleared to play. He took part in the team picture, which I think some of you may have seen in the social media. And so that still tells me that the plan is still for him to be playing. Whether it ultimately happens, it's just kind of sit and wait and see. I hoped it would have gone quicker than what his brother had to deal with last year at Kentucky. His brother didn't play till January something. It might have been like January 20th. And I'm sure the staff wishes it was going to happen much quicker too. But I did want to say that when I knew the local media was happening and they were going to take these team pictures, one of the first things I was going to notice was to see if Ivicic was going to be in the pictures, or not. And because if he wasn't, then that would have signaled to me that maybe the staff is starting to lack a little confidence when it comes to whether he was going to be a big part of the team. But let's just say he misses some time. Kerry Booth is going to be playing a lot of those big man minutes. He's got the height for it, 6'10". He's a little skinnier than you'd want him to be, but a former 4-star high school basketball player. He showed glimpses of a bright future at Notre Dame last year. He's got NBA blood in him, and he does show up on mock drafts every now and then. So I do think after a year or two, he can be a very important piece to this Illini team. Maybe or maybe not yet. Ivicic I kind of already covered. Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn, another guy who I love his story. I've said this all the time, and I know you guys who watch me every single day know that Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn has the potential to be one of the best Illinois stories in recent memory. A guy who everyone thought would leave last season with a lot of the outside drama that kind of followed him up. But while 9 or 10 of the guys from last year's team are gone, he decided to stay. And let's be honest, the fact that he seems to have a rivalry with the Purdue fan base makes this a little bit more fun. But the whole point of this episode, and of course I'm late addressing it, is the freshman. The guys I just named on this team, and maybe I'm wrong. I want to hear your guys' opinion. When you talk about the best guys on the team, right? Kylan Boswell, Ben Humrickhouse, Trey White, good basketball players. But if Kylan Boswell, Ty Rogers, Ben Humrickhouse are your first or second best player, do you guys think that is a Sweet 16 or Elite 8 team? Because that's where all of a sudden I don't. And the idea that, we brought in a lot of talent this offseason, but I don't think we've ever brought in this much talent. And, that's when we're really going to, if Illinois is supposed to repeat any of their success from last year, and I'm not setting the standard at Elite 8, not at all. Honestly, for me, I'd love to make it to the second weekend. The team is super young. But even to reach that goal, I think we're going to need a Kasparis or a Will Riley or a Morez Johnson to be our best player. I'll start with Morez. Morez is, we've seen it in high school. Those of us who lived in Chicago, I just recently moved out, but we saw the highlights then. He's been committed to us for a while, so he's a kid that Illini fans have been paying attention to for a very, very long time. Insane motor. Yeah, you're talking about Ty Rogers type of motor. The guy was put on this earth to grab rebounds. Is he ready to be a upper level big man in the Big Ten right now? I don't know. He's done very well in these practices I was referencing earlier, but the Big Ten Conference is a very physical one. It's a very tough one. And let's be honest, at least in my opinion, again, I know I disagree with some of the commenters disagree with me when I brought this up earlier. I'm not quite as confident in his offensive game yet. And I do think that's going to take a year or two of adjustment before we really see Morez starting to reach his potential in an Illini uniform. Secondly, Will Riley. Will Riley, we all know, has star potential. If he had stayed in his class next year and not decided to reclassify and become an Illini this year, he would have been a top 10 overall guy in that class. You're talking about a potential top 5, top 10 pick. Even right now, I believe he's being projected to right outside the lottery when it comes to an NBA draft for next year. Now, in my opinion, if I had to guess and write the script of this season, I know a lot of you know that I say that, our ceiling is decently high this year. Let's just say Sweet 16, but I think the 2025 team can legit win the national championship. And a lot of you are going to ask, how? KJ's supposed to be a one-and-done guy. Will Riley's supposed to be a one-and-done guy. I do think that there's a better than 50-50 chance that maybe Will Riley does stay on for one more year. And if we can see a sophomore Will Riley on this basketball team, I think immediately that gives us that Elite 8 or higher aspirations. But the last guy I want to talk about, and I think the key to this season, and all Illini fans are familiar with him, is Kasparis Jakushonis. Normally, if you're counting on freshmen to lead your team to the Sweet 16 or lead your team beyond that, unless you're Kentucky or Duke, you don't want to really count on 18-year-olds. But KJ might be a little bit different. I didn't know who this guy was. I talk about this all the time. 2.5, 3 months ago, I didn't know who this kid was. And then all of a sudden the whispers were that Illinois was out on Denim and started scouting this new kid, Kasparis Jakushonis. And coincidentally enough, he had a bunch of games that were streaming on YouTube Live with a bunch of top talent in American basketball, and you got to see him play for the FIBA under 18s, and I couldn't be more impressed from what I saw. And it's those experiences that have me excited and optimistic about what this season can look like. Kasparis isn't a normal 17, 18-year-old who's just played ball here. Out in Europe, you play in some of the toughest environments, and not even that. It's like here, when you're playing high school basketball, you're a 16-year-old playing against a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old playing against an 18-year-old. Out there, in some of these leagues, you're battling men. And Kasparis has had his share of playing in exhibitions and whatnot with guys much older than him, and he's always held his own. He's held his own against Denim, the original target that Illinois had, who ultimately decided to sign on with BYU. Kasparis, I really think, can be different. I'm trying to keep expectations moderate because, and I'm going to talk about this in a future episode, I think expectations for this season are very high, which is okay, but I think this early part of the season is going to be a struggle, especially with us counting on these freshmen so fast. But if this team were to make that deep tournament run, I think Kasparis is the guy. I think he can be the guy. Otherwise, I would have written this off. You wouldn't see me even talking about making that second weekend run, but this kid is special. I can't say it enough. His size, his vision, I think he's going to be a lottery pick next year. I would be shocked if he isn't. If he isn't, it could be good for the Illini, but more than likely it's going to be a bad reason. So we're going to just hope that KJ is able to do what he's capable of doing. And at least in my opinion, that's going to be the key for whether Illinois is able to skip the level of rebuilding and instead just jump into simply reloading. I want to hear your thoughts. Am I too high on KJ? Are you guys higher on Morez Johnson, Will Riley? From what you've seen, they release tapes all the time now, right? The social media team is fantastic with this stuff. What are you seeing that you're liking? What are you seeing that you're not liking? Let me know in the chat. NBA season is right around the corner, and I'm not going to lie, I kind of do miss having an NBA team right down the street. Just for those of you that don't know, my very first NBA game I got to watch at the Chicago Stadium, and Michael Jordan hit a game-winning basket against the Indiana Pacers. It's a memory that kind of ingrained the Chicago Bulls into my heart, and one of the reasons I'm still to this day a diehard Chicago Bulls fan. If you're looking for a way to get to a game, whether you're a Bulls fan, whether you're a Indiana Pacers fan, or maybe a Dallas Mavericks fan or San Antonio Spurs fan, just check out Game Time. Game Time gives you all-in pricing. You can toggle this feature, basically showing you what the price is totally upfront with no surprise fees. Of course, you get seat views, get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Also, the lowest price guarantee on Game Time, or Game Time will credit you with 110% of the difference. Just take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. I wanted to give a special shout out in the second segment to Marlene Thomas and Daryl Milstead. Marlene Thomas on last night's episode said, "Dear Sunny, I enjoy watching your video on YouTube. You do a great job. Go Illini." And Daryl said, "Thank you for your podcast." And then he kind of started talking about the topic yesterday when it comes to the schedule. Just know I enjoy creating Illini content every single day, unlike anyone else, because of you guys. It's just the fact that we get 20 plus in this chat just when I do a live episode in the evenings. That's what's kind of had me decide to possibly change my schedule around. And instead of releasing them every morning pre-recorded, kind of going back and forth and maybe recording live on maybe 2 or 3 times a week, depending on whether the schedule allows it. But again, please don't be shy. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. It costs you guys nothing. I know you hear me say this all the time, but because it works. We're over 1,300 subs, all because of your guys' support. It costs you guys absolutely nothing. And what it does is it shares it to other Illini fans out there who might be interested in the content. For this next segment, I kind of wanted to talk about the way this Illinois football roster has been looking like, we all praise Brett Bielema for this football team. 4 years ago, I talked about this. We were all hoping that Brett would have this football team where it's at right now, and that's roughly 5-1, competing against the best teams in the country. No longer are we worried about being blown out 63-3. But what I kind of find amusing, and let me know what you guys think, because this thought came to my mind a couple days ago. This isn't a Brett Bielema team. What we envisioned a Brett Bielema team looking like when we hired him was, strong in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line, getting to the quarterback, just an offense built on running the ball, getting 3-4 yards, and getting first downs and prolonging drives. This team's not like that at all. This team is one of the best offensive teams in the Big Ten, which, by the way, I predicted, and I got laughed off my other show, Big Ten show, which, by the way, is also in the comments. If you're interested in high-level Big Ten content, I do that once a week. But I said that Illinois would have one of the 5 or 6 best offenses in the Big Ten Conference. Guess what? Illinois has one of the 5 or 6 best offenses in the Big Ten Conference. We have a quarterback who is just extremely confident. Back to my original point, the reason the team is kind of built the way it is almost a lot of it has to do with the transfer portal, right? At quarterback, you have Luke Altmaier, a transfer who came in after he lost his job at Ole Miss. And, he had an up and down season last year, more ups than downs, at least that he's given credit for. But then ultimately this year, he's made a leap to becoming one of the best quarterbacks in the conference. And one of the reasons for that is you have a guy like Zachary Franklin, who is a quarterback's best friend. And you can see it. Zachary may not go off for the 100 and 120 yards like Pat Bryant does, but there's a certain level of trust that Luke obviously has in Zachary, and I pointed it out in one of the clips of the game this past Saturday, where Zachary wasn't even open, but Luke knew that Zachary would get to a spot, and he threw it there, and Zachary, sure enough, came down with it. So what's the issue with the offensive and defensive line? Things have changed since Brett Bielema was last a head coach in the college football ranks. Back then, you could just kind of recruit a certain trait, a few traits, focus on size, and just develop those players to your liking, especially if you have good coaching like Brett Bielema always did. Now, I don't think it's a coincidence that we're struggling on the offensive and defensive line. You know what? Besides the quarterback is the most expensive position to fill and the most expensive, especially when it comes to NIL. It's that defensive line. Illinois does a very good job with it, but Brett Bielema's philosophy, and I think it's the right one, let me know in the chat if you agree or disagree, is Brett Bielema is not going to overpay for a prospect. He's not going to overpay for a high school player, even if he thinks that player might be able to, help the team, help the program. So that's one of the reasons I do think you see a lack of the high-end 4 stars and certainly no conversation with any 5 stars. Brett would rather pay a guy like Gabe Jackas or Luke Altmaier, guys who he's seen proven it on the field, and he believes, that builds a better culture in the locker room. You don't want no young guy who hasn't proven himself making more money than a guy next to him who may have been an all Big Ten conference player. So is that something that can correct itself ultimately? Brett, obviously he's recruited the heck out of that offensive line position, which right now still has struggled. But if you really think about it, his recruits, I believe right now are just redshirt sophomores, which in the long game, like offensive linemen take a long time to develop. And especially with that size going up against other big guys in college football, I'm a little bit more optimistic that eventually Brett's going to figure out the situation with their offensive line. And we keep getting them drafted, right? In the NFL, the NFL is noticing. We had 2 of them drafted last year. I think eventually that offensive line issue with Brett is going to be corrected just by pure development, but it just may take a little longer than we wanted, especially in this NIL era. What I'm not as confident about is the defensive side of that line. I talk about expense. It's the defensive line that is right behind quarterback when it comes to really every blue chip team wants a good lineman on the defensive side. That's what NFL teams are always looking out for. And so that really doesn't change at the college football level. So when it comes to, even if you're a low 4-star talent, you're going to have the top programs gunning at you, offering you money. Like those programs don't mind offering a lot of money to high school preps, which again, Illinois is a little more hesitant to do, but I understand why. So with the defensive line, we take a little more risk and we have no choice but to be a little bit more patient. That's where Brett has really no choice but to build the defensive line the way he used to when he was coaching Wisconsin. And that's just recruiting and developing size and traits that he feels like he can coach up. Is it going to last? I don't know. That's if you had to ask me, that's probably the biggest question mark I have about the staff moving forward. I talk about this all the time. We need to recruit more playmakers, but the defensive line right now is satisfactory, right? We have a decent floor, but almost no ceiling. That's clearly one of the positions that we're like, do we have to wait out for another Dennis Briggs, who's, just a guy who's going to be in his like 6th or 7th year, who knows he has one last chance. And so Brett Bielema can kind of sell him on the idea of making it to the NFL because, hey, it's your last year anyway. And this is, I have a history of doing this. Maybe. Or will Illinois fans, especially with the success that we've had this year, really start opening up the NIL funds even more? And, Brett's goal, he talked about this, was he wants to be in the top third when it comes to the Big Ten Conference and the NIL spending. Is that possible? I think so. I hope. That's what kind of hurts about just barely missing these bowl games 2 out of the last 3 years. I think if we were on a back-to-back run, which we're just a couple bounces away from, things would be looking a lot more optimistic. But if the Illini continue to have the season that I still think that they're going to have, I know a lot of you are getting a little bit more nervous, but, outside these next 2 weeks, I think we're going to learn a little bit about this team. Which, by the way, I have a link in the comments. As soon as I'm done here, I'm going to be going to the Voice of College Football, their Michigan channel, and I'm going to be previewing the Illinois and Michigan game, which I'll save for later this week for you guys. But the defensive line has issues, limited ceiling as of today, but continued success, which I think Illinois is on its trajectory for. If Brett can continue to develop some of these guys and put them into the NFL, people are going to notice. It may not be the 4.5-star high school guy, but it may be that same 4.5-star who 2 years later hasn't really been able to get on the field for the Gators and all of a sudden is looking to maybe come closer back to home. And things didn't work out for him at Texas A&M, so he wants to go to a guy who a lot of people trust can get them to the NFL level. It's just kind of wait and see, right? The college landscape is changing every single day. And so we don't know what this landscape is going to look like next year or the year after that. But I say this all the time. I'm just glad, grateful Brett Bielema is the guy in charge. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Wow, I can't believe we're at 30 minutes already. Let's get to some of the comments in here. Friend of the show, Philip, do we need a billboard to get the NCAA to clear Big T sooner? And Czar says pretty much the same thing. I can't believe the NCAA has any authority anymore. Yeah, I don't get it at this point. Technically, I guess, they are still in charge, but let's be honest, it's not Illinois that could be the program that's going to stand up to the NCAA. If it's going to take a teamwork of an Ohio State and maybe a Texas and Michigan to kind of team up and really challenge the NCAA before the rest of the college football world joins. A program like Illinois, we're just not big enough. We don't hold enough cachet to really warrant the NCAA even noticing. Yeah, who knows? A year from now, a decade from now, things might be different. Jason says, I think Final Four got to dream big. I'm not saying it can't happen, but Jason, I love that enthusiasm. I love the fact that you're watching these shows every day. Just know it makes it easier for me to come on here every single day. If it happens, I think it's going to be on the back of Kasparis and Will Riley, and those two kids are just incredibly talented that it's absolutely feasible. And man, what a story that would be. Jason also says, I'm big on this year, deepest in history. KJ stud, Will Riley stud. This team is the deepest I've ever seen. Very, very deep. I joked around about that at the beginning of the episode. There's 9 or 10 guys who I wouldn't be surprised if they played, over 6-7 minutes on for this team. So, but let's be honest, when it comes to Big Ten play, it doesn't matter if you have 10 guys that can play. Brad's going to have to find 8. Worst case, and have the 9th guy come in every now and then. That's just the way basketball is played now. We don't have 10 guys of equal talent. Just because we have 10 good basketball players does not mean number 5 and number 9 are interchangeable. If five is better than number 9, then you want 5 to be playing more minutes than number 9. So will that lead to some people being upset by the end of the season? Possibly, but we can't be worried about that stuff anymore. Just take a look at this year's team. It's on a year-by-year basis. There's roster turnover, and you just want to build a good team culture. And the whole point of this is to win basketball games. Let me get to the next comment first. Sean says, what's the big update on Big T? Sean, nobody knows. I talked about this earlier on in the episode. You may have tuned in late. Once I knew the team picture was taken, I wanted to see if Avicic would be in it. And the fact that he is tells me that the staff still thinks he's going to be playing this season. So I have no reason to think otherwise. But I did make it my prediction that I think Morez is going to be our starter now opening day. Philip says ROI on NIL funds. Yeah, and that's what a program like Illinois has to do, right? If we offer 6 figures, close to $1 million on a high school prep, and he flames out, that's a big part of our budget. And a big part of our budget, we need a high ROI. And that's why you go to guys who've already proven it to you their freshman or sophomore years. How hard workers they are, in practice, what kind of leadership qualities they have. Those are the guys you want to keep happy. If we had an endless war chest when it comes to NIL, you could take these risks. Illinois right now is just not there. Daryl says, hi, Sunny, can't wait. Basketball season almost here, so hopeful for this season. Daryl, I don't know if you tuned in late, but I did give you a little shout out earlier, so I appreciate you. Rajiv says, best time of the year, football in full swing and basketball right around the corner. Great work, Sunny. Like and sub everyone. Go Badgers. Rajiv is one of my favorite people in the world, despite his allegiance to the Wisconsin Badgers. Definitely check out the Bucky Report on YouTube. They do a great job every Sunday night, essentially. Sean says, was he in the team picture, and does Illinois beat Michigan on Sunday? Sean, he was in the team picture, which is what has me still thinking he's going to be playing this year. And does Illinois beat Michigan on Saturday? My everydayers in here know, before the season started, I had 4 bold predictions. And one of my bold predictions was Illinois would beat Michigan at home for this game. And you know what? Who am I to change my opinion now, especially with us being off to a 5-1 start? It'd be pretty silly of me to decide that we couldn't win. Thank you guys all for watching today. Do me a favor. Again, like button. I think we're at about 16 likes. Let's jack that up a little bit. On your way out, just hit the subscribe button, like button. Costs you guys nothing. If you guys would like to support the program, please, there's a SUBTEXT group. It's in the comment section. That's a way for you guys to get updates as soon as I get them. That way you don't have to really wait for a new episode to be released. But more importantly, I want you to know, or I want you to tell me if you enjoy live episodes. Even if you're not watching this live now, if you're watching this on YouTube later, let me know, hey, yeah, I like the idea of an evening show. Let's do this every evening. At that point, I can set a time. If you're listening to this on the audio side, I appreciate you guys so much for showing up every single day. Those downloads break records weekly. Let me know if you want to join us live in the chat on 2 or 3 times on weeknights. That's all I have for you guys today. Tomorrow we'll probably wrap up the Purdue talk. I don't know if I even want to touch Purdue. You guys let me know if you guys want me to talk about Purdue anymore. I think I'm kind of over it. I want to focus on this Michigan game. But regardless, we'll see. One thing you do know for sure is you will see me tomorrow. So ILL, love you guys.